Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you a simple technique for laying ballast. It does require a little patience. Most of the tools you'll probably have already at your home. Some need to be purchased, and we'll go over that. But this is the final result, and I'll show you how I got to it. Stick around. Alright, so I want to go over the products that we're going to be using today. Code 83 Flex Track by Atlas. Walthers has also come out with some new foam road bed. We're going to use that, and I'll also give you a review of how I feel about this stuff. And we're going to attach it all to this board. We're going to use this today as a foundation to build off of. Let me show you what else we got going on here. The ballast, fine gray and light gray, both fine. We're going to mix these two together. We're going to need a atomizer bottle of some sort. This is an old hairspray bottle that's been cleaned, and it holds just water. To paint the rail and the ties, we're going to use rail brown, an old paintbrush, a pipette, a thin old scrap piece of styrene. We're going to need the white glue, the simple construction adhesive. This is a 3M max strength contact adhesive. Now earlier I tested this to make sure it didn't actually eat the foam, and it does not. It's just a spray glue. And also the cups, a couple of disposable cups, and the airbrush. That's about it for right now. Now let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's talk about the road bed here real quick. Walthers recently has introduced this new foam road bed. It's pretty good stuff. The dimensions of it are on the box here. The road bed profile is 3/16 of an inch thick. It's 1.5 inches wide at the top, and at the base it's 1 7/8, right under here. Back in the day, in the 80s, what we used to have is something called homabed or homasote. What it was ground down newspaper, formed into something that looked like this. And then now, as many of us may know, cork is also a big road bed that we use. They're all good. Personally, I'm old school. I like the old homabed. It's hard to find anymore. There is a manufacturer out there that does it. He does it sort of as a side job. This is what that stuff used to look like. It's just newspaper. This one is a flexible section. It was really good at deadening sound. This guy is cwhomeroad.com. That's one of the only places you can find right now road bed the old-fashioned way. All three of them deaden the sound, wheels to wood, quite well. If you wanted to go old school, you know, check that guy's website out. He's got some quality products. So anyway, we're going to use this as our base for the track. It's worth the mention. Clearly, you can see I have some paper down here. This is some old craft paper I put down because I am going to be spraying the glue, and I want to make sure that that stuff doesn't get anywheres off of this paper because it is sticky. That's a pretty good coat, and it is ready to be put onto the foundation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center the best I can. So we'll leave that sit an extra minute or so, make sure it adheres properly. The next thing we'll do is we'll put the track on, and we'll try to find the center the best we can. Note to Walthers, print the center line on this. Many of us that use cork before understand that when we separate the cork, it comes in one piece. We have to separate it to get the edges here like this. It forms a center line right on it, whereas this stuff does not have a center line, so you have to kind of find it yourself. Just etched a quick little center line on there with a pen. Now we're going to adhere the track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small bead just down the center. Let's go ahead and take that piece of styrene, and we'll now spread the material. And now we'll lay the track on top, trying to find the center as best we can. That doesn't look too bad. Now that I got the glue down and the track placed in the glue, I'm going to give this overnight to dry. But when it's drying, I want to use these simple little clamps. They're just to hold the track into place. Also notice that the glue does not come above the ties. You don't need very much with this. The next step will be airbrush the ties and rails. Give this a few minutes to dry. I started cleaning the rails. Make sure I clean off the top rail as best I can. Walthers makes what's known as a Bright Boy. A Bright Boy is like an eraser with grit in it. If you don't have one and you're into this hobby, I suggest you get one. Bright Boy does a real good job keeping the rails super clean. They also make them on cars. It continuously cleans the rails. It's spring loaded so that it just continuously drags across the rail. I mean, that's especially if you've got a large layout. So the next step is to mix the ballast. So we're going to go with the fine. We're going to start with fine gray. We're going to make our own mix. So, and then I'm going to add the light gray to it. This is a pretty good blend right here. I think we're getting where we want to be. Of course, this is a special blend, so you got to be consistent through your entire layout. That looks pretty decent. So we'll pour this in this cup here. It looks all right to me. I don't know. Take a look. It's not too bad. So the next thing we'll do is we'll bring the track over and we'll start pouring the ballast. And remember, we have the paintbrush as one of the tools. This is going to be the main tool we use to spread our ballast. I'm going to start just sprinkling it in. And then I'm going to start spreading it with the brush and bring it down slowly so that I start seeing the ties. I'm not going to worry so much about the edges there, guys. This edge I don't care so much about because I want to try not to make a mess here. I try to keep as much of it off the ties and the rails as possible. I'll use my fingers as well to help. Alright, so I'm going to make sure I rub the brush inside the rail and get all that ballast out. Now, I use my fingers a lot, and I'll rub my index or my middle finger down the center of the ties and try to make sure that none of the material sits on the tie and make sure none of that's up there on the rail. So we want to make sure we keep that as realistic as possible. And again, fingers are a huge part in this, making sure that the ballast that we move from the rail that gets on the ties gets pressed down in between the ties with our fingers. And then the next thing will be to build up the drop from the ties down. So we just want to build up along the edge. I'm not so concerned about getting any on the ties. So I'll take my fingers. I've got quite a bit above the rail stacked on this side. So what I'll do is I'll just rub my fingers along it and flatten it out, just like so. And then just start dragging the brush, just like this. And keep working it down. So that doesn't look too bad, just like that. I'll just slightly form it with my finger. And then we'll just make sure, like I said, none is on the rail. So I'm shy right in this area. So what I'll do is let's bring this down into the view. We'll bring this up just a little bit more. And then I'll use my finger to level it out. And now I got that done, I'm going to do it on this side. Form it with my fingers. And then we'll brush it off. And we'll just rub our fingers along the edge of the ties. And get the ties clean. And do the same in the middle. And the same on the outside here. The next part here will be to take the hairspray bottle that's filled with water and spray and saturate all the ballast. This is important. You want to get the ballast well saturated so that it takes the glue when it's time to put the glue down. Now what this does is It takes the water and it atomizes it, so it's very fine. If you were to just put straight water or glue on this, it'll repel. All right, so the next step here would be the glue and that pipette we talked about earlier. What I've done here, I would say it's probably a 30-70 mix of glue to water. I've mixed it thoroughly, and I just want to lay that in there. Saturate all of this ballast with this glue. So the next thing will be to let it dry now that it's thoroughly saturated. And once it's dry, we'll come back and we'll clean the rail. And we'll clean up any ballast that may have moved. Let's see what it looks like in 24 hours. All right, guys. After I showed you the gluing procedure, I finished ballasting the whole board. I did it off camera because I didn't want to waste your time. This glue has had about 48 hours to dry. It looks great, you know, as is, but needs details. So what I was going to do is put some grease stains and some rust stains, ties I'm going to throw on there. Because right now when you look at it, you're just focusing on the track itself. We want things to take your focus off of that. The railroad right-of-way is a very imperfect world. There's a lot of debris alongside. So we're going to just do something real quick to demonstrate. Let me just zoom in on this and show you the colors that I chose for the mix. There are two different colors. Well, we're going to dampen those colors down again, like I said, with some weathering. When I'm doing a large volume, I'll mix about a gallon so that it's as uniform as possible along the train set. So we used a fine ballast by Woodland Scenics, an Atlas Code 83 Flex Track, ties in the rails with the rail brown, Createx colors. You can get this at Hobby Lobby or online. It's just black, nothing fancy that's going to simulate oil. Then we're going to dampen this whole thing down. We'll fire up the airbrush. We're going to dial down quite a bit to about 18 pounds. I'll set the needle so it's barely pushing anything out, and we'll come back in along the center here like so, along the edges. So we'll do that throughout the entire base here. Grease tends to turn this muddy orange rusty color as it settles over time. So this is the base color we're going to use first. Alright, so I have a little bit of that Createx Wicked color black. Kind of dulled down the orange. Add a little darkness to it. We're going to add some extra detail parts. So you can see I got a couple of dark areas, and there's no real reason why it stands out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some detail parts in, just real simple. I have some ties. I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on it, and I'm going to just lay it on there. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue over here where you really can't see. And let's put this guy back down here. We'll put him down this way now. That doesn't look too bad. I hope this was a bit of a help for you guys. Requires a little bit of patience and some simple tools. Thanks for watching.